One thing I'm often told is I get labelled a hater more than I offer any form of criticism or even constructive criticism, even though I'm in the process of rewriting the show extensively. And I wanted to actually prove that while I do pick apart the show, it's not necessarily that I'm doing something wrong. And perhaps it's the fandom that is just vividly ignoring a lot of things that they shouldn't be ignoring. And in order for me to do this, I'm going to make. Hopefully, they're going to end up being short videos. They shouldn't be really long, but each one will be targeting a different aspect of the show. And the best way to get it across to the fandom without seeming like an asshole is to ask extremely basic questions that, if the show was handled right, should be pretty easy to answer. Because the more basic the question, the more obvious the show should have answered it. So this first video will be going into origins. And by origins, first question. Such a simple thing. They even made a World of Remnant video on it. They made lots of World of Remnant videos, and now about 70% of those videos are changed or retconned to something else. Question for everyone. Where did the faunus come from? Volume 6, Episode 3 was supposed to be a huge lore dump into Salem and Ozma, but as they were telling the tale, it raised more questions than it gave answers. It's like they didn't know what they were doing. It's like, hey, we got Salem and Ozma ahead to you. You know about them, but the entire world that evolved around them just raised more questions. And if we're just getting into it, it's the, you know, Dark God commits genocide, Salem's the only one left, and when everything starts magically reappearing, the faunus just exist. But where did they come from? How were they created? I mean, the weirdest thing that pops into my head and it's fucking disgusting is like, did some human screw an animal and for some goddamn reason a hybrid with, like, that's fucking disgusting. But I'm like, where did they come from? What, it should be a simple answer. Like, you look up the faunus wiki and it just says this is where they came from, but fuck, we know where they came from. This also begs further questions in the origin. Where did dust come from? Like, this one you can kind of make assumptions for, but even the assumptions raise questions. If it's meteorites from the moon when the moon broke off, you telling me the moon's full of dust? Like the entire moon is just like a lot of dust? Was it the fact that these asteroids, when they passed through the atmosphere, they turned into dust in the atmosphere and crashed? Or perhaps, is it because the moon is just rock, but when the Dark God hit it, whatever magic unique powers he had attached to the friggin' rocks, and those rocks fell on the planet? But then you gotta ask yourself, if it is because of the Dark God, and he's, pissed off 5 minutes ago, and he took back magic from the humans before killing them, did he accidentally give humans dust? Did he purposely do it? Does a god make, like, mistakes, like accidentally create dust? In hindsight, there is no actual canon for where dust came from. We just see Ozma walking through the streets. Oh, look, there's faunus. Oh, yeah, shit. This piece is a rock that became called dust. And I'm just like, when did dust become actively used? Like, was it? This is, you see, this is where it's getting to me. This is where it's raising more questions. Then we jump into humans in general. And the show has two approaches. One of them's a big assumption, but the other one is a guaranteed. They take a bit of inspiration from the biblical sense, the Bible. Because essentially the light and dark God are just God from the Bible, and they work together and they create humans, which is basically Adam and Eve type shit. And Dark God gave him extra, he's magic, have fun, blah blah blah. Kind of weird that the God that gave humans magic is no longer worshipped by the humans that use magic. I mean, not asking them to go into that, but based on the law we're given, human beings can only exist through the creation of the gods because they're the ones that came up with the concept. Then human beings get wiped out with a genocide. Dark God pisses off, and Light God only intervenes when humanity is already restored. It's never stated that he brought humans back. So this isn't the Light God doing it, which only leads to one assumption. And I say it's not canon, it's an assumption. That's a big problem the RWBY fandom has. They actually believe their own assumptions. Never do that. An assumption is a guess regardless. And the assumption is evolution. And that contradicts, like, in real life, religion, based on God's creation of humanity, and evolution do not blend. They're two completely different theories that contradict each other. RWBY's tried to combine them, where the gods are the only ones that create humans, and then after they wipe us out, we evolved from something and just reappeared. Like, did we evolve from monkeys, fish? How? Did Salem notice human beings being created over time? This is a lot of questions. It's like, how did humans come back? What exactly is dust? I mean, we get that it's got elemental magical powers, but like, where the fuck did it come from? And when did humans actually start effectively using it, like in ways that helped? Faunus, there's no answer to where the faunus friggin' came from. All origin-based questions that should be the basic 101 for this show are not answered, and if the fandom believes there is an answer, as I said, it's assumptions and headcanons, not actual canon show. It's just people guessing, but they become satisfied with their assumptions. They start to believe, because they've filled in the gaps, that the show's good based on their assumptions, and that's dangerous. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to make these 10 minutes long. This will be the first video in a series. The next video I want to tackle, raising basic questions on the show, is the Grimm. The Grimm have quite a few problems with themselves, and it's very basic, and I'll be raising questions on them. You know what? I will be honestly surprised if anyone who watches this video can answer the 3 questions of humanity, dust, or faunus. Because the moment you actually sit down and think about it, you can't answer the questions. What is the point of this? It's kind of like I have a ranking system for everything between 0 and 10, and when you rate a show somewhere, you have to justify it. So if a show's good, it's like a 6 or a 7. Great, 8 or 9. So if you're going to say RWBY's good, it's a 6 or a 7, you have to justify it. But if it's got this much lore missing all over the place, you got to give it like a 4 or something. It's got a lot of gaps that require being filled in. So this is Origins, and the next episode will be the Grimm.